Hi, Brian. I'm taking a look at your Ancestor project. Okay, this is all really great. One, your slides are great to look at. They're easy to read. I can hear you in your voice. You're nice and steady. You speak slowly enough that I can understand everything you're saying. So good, good, good all across. The defibrillation actually, when you're listening to your narration, comes before the blood transfusion, so make sure that's in the correct order. Also, I would break this up. Maybe, ending death and disease, spontaneous generation, galvanism, and defibrillation kind of go together. So have some separate slides and go into a little more detail on them, but separate them out. It seems like it's a little too much information with just the one slide. Public perception. I'm glad that you have this in here. I think that's incredibly important, and I like the way that you are setting up your describing the ancestor section so that when we as your audience get to the identify and analyze the connections, we understand it because you are setting it up perfectly for us. So really good job with that. This one's fine. You don't have to go any further with this one. This one you need to break up into, so this is the section you're going to need to really work on. You have a lot of really good stuff in here. You've identified some really great connections. Go a little further with it, and also, like I said, break them up into their own slides and go deeper with the analysis. You've done a really great job identifying and explaining those connections, but you're not analyzing them yet, which means you're not explaining how and why Mary Shelley is using them. Why does Mary Shelley use science? Why does she have Victor so obsessed with science? Why does she have Victor doing all these things? Why is it science that is the reason that the creature comes to life? It's not magic. Also be careful, because when you start talking about electricity, and I'm glad you used the quote, he gathered his instruments about him to infuse it with the spark of life kind of thing. Just make sure that it's really clear that Mary Shelley never tells us that it's electricity that does it, but hints at it, right? Which is great. So, but like I said, so break these up, go further with the analysis. I talk about how deep to go with the analysis and how to do that. There's a video in the announcements where I talk about like the 3 different parts of the project, the issues students tend to have that they tend to run into while they're going through this drafting process. And so make sure you watch that if you haven't already. If you have, maybe watch it again, especially the last part about how to do the analysis, how deep it should go, etc. It's really like the fact that Mary Shelley is using science to bring the creature to life is extremely important. It's making commentary on her society. It's making commentary on the Enlightenment, because remember, she is a romantic, and romantics and the Enlightenment don't really go together very well. So there's a lot of things going on, like why she's using science. And it's also the idea, if you go and you think about, because you've already read the stuff in the Monsters book, where it's the monstrous body is a cultural body. The idea that the monsters developed because of what's happening in society. So a monster in narrative is created in a way that it reflects what's happening. And so her monster and how the monster's created, and if you want to think of, and even if you want to think of Victor as one of the monsters, it's all about science, right? And so why is it science? Why, and so this is a really, you can kind of tie some of this in, but that's what people were scared of. If you want to write a horror narrative, create a horror narrative, you use with the people who are going to be reading it or watching it, if it's a film now, what people are scared of, like what is going on in the society. So if you want to think about, that's why I talk about, well, we don't use it in this particular, we're not doing it this semester, but like the Terminator is, people were scared of artificial intelligence, right? And that's one of the reasons why the Terminator was frightening. Like, oh my gosh, here's a machine. That's why, the new Planet of the Apes series, it's about science, bringing it about, and how we're messing with things with science. And so that kind of scares us. And guess what? Here we have another Frankenstein story using science. So it's like, what is it that scares us is how these creatures are coming to life. Okay, I've talked long enough. If you have questions about anything I'm telling you, make sure you get a hold of me. If you have questions about any of the other resources that I've provided, the video and the announcements, any of the stuff that's under Learning Materials, Ancestor projects, there's a ton of stuff in there. Make sure you get a hold of me about that. If you want me to take a look at another version of this, then make an appointment to come see me and I'll be happy to do that. So you just have to let me know what you need.